Hey, it's Monday night and time for Discovering. Tonight, we'll take a look at what you need to know about getting that trophy fish mounted.
Catch a walleye, big walleye. What's the first thing that we do to preserve it as best we can for you?
We'll check out a book about a special dog and a look at the annual Midwest Crane Count.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forests thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
So you caught that trophy fish and want to get it mounted. Cody paid a visit to Branlin's Taxidermy to find out what you need to know.
Hey Jason, how's it going?
Cody, nice to meet you.
All right, Cody Cass here. Today I'm here with Jason View from Branlin's Taxidermy in Gladstone, Michigan. So today we're going to talk about kind of what you do. Like say I catch a fish all the way up to like the trophy part, right? So how does that process work?
Well, when it comes to fish, you have two options. You can do a skin mount or a replica.
Right.
They both have their pros and cons. Majority of what I do is skin mount, but replicas are a great asset for catch and release guys, or the guys that want to eat their catch, or something that they caught when they're younger and they want to relive the memory. So.
All right, so before we jump into the fish, kind of how did you get started into taxidermy?
Well, I started out back in about 2016 area. I shot a deer, did my own European mount. I liked it. I wanted to expand on it. So I found a school, American Institute of Taxidermy in Wisconsin, that took the GI Bill, and I went to school and then fell in love with it.
All right, so this is not my walleye, but okay, catch a walleye, big walleye. What's the first thing that we do to preserve it as best we can for you?
First thing you want to do, the biggest rule is don't gut the fish.
Okay.
If you're it's gonna be a while till you get it to the taxidermist. Best thing to do is freeze it, or if you can get it to the taxidermist right away, that's better yet. But you're gonna want to lay it flat on a towel, on a damp towel. Make sure all the fins are back. Don't want them sticking out because that's just gonna bend them when you fold the towel in. Make sure everything's laying flat. Make sure the fins are against the body, down, and then you're just gonna want to wrap it up.
So is something porous too? Like you don't want to wrap this in like any sort of like say tightly with a trash bag or anything. It's got to be porous.
Right, you want something porous that stays wet, so when the fish thaws, it's kind of a gradual thawing process. And maybe a little bit of frostbite or freezer burn that happened to the fins, the wet towel will help rehydrate them as it's thawing out. But then you're just going to fold it over. Make sure you don't crush the fins. Kind of feel where the tail fin ends. It doesn't have to be real tight. Just make a.
So making sure that the very tip of the fin is not being put into that fold.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And all this is where you want to take and put it in a black garbage bag if you can. Anything plastic really, and then put it in your freezer. Lay it flat on your freezer, like a chest tight freezer. Try not to get any bends in the body as it's freezing.
Yeah, I know for me, like I don't have a chest freezer, so that's something I have to kind of, the checklist I'm doing in my head if I'm catching a fish and I want a skin mount is, start calling my buddies like, hey, make some room because I got a big walleye or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
Or call your taxidermist and see if he's around. If he can meet you to put it in his freezer. Ultimately, that's the best.
All right, so that was a skin mount. Basically, there's a little bit more work on my end that goes into it, or the customer's end, to go into the towel folding and the preserving of the fish. Now with replica mounts, a little bit easier for you, and a lot of people they say that they last longer, and it's a little bit more to work with. So, and especially like you said, if you're trying to have your cake and eat it too, catch a big walleye and you want to get the fillets off of it, but you also want it mounted. This is a good option for that as well.
Right. This is a little, like you said, a little easier for the angler to deal with, so to say. What I would need from you is just the overall length of the fish from nose to tail, and the girth measurement.
Okay.
So this is basically a cast.
It looks like a brown trout.
This is a brown trout.
Okay.
So this is a cast. It's like a hard plastic, so to say, resin. And there's scale detail in here, molded from an actual fish. You can get any species imaginable. So if you caught a fish on vacation down in the Bahamas or wherever, and you can bring that back and we can do a replica.
I mean, looking in your shop, I couldn't really tell the difference too much between a replica mount and a skin mount. It seems like the difference is a lot smaller nowadays than it was maybe 10, 15 years ago.
I think with any industry, there's always products that evolve, and then also as a taxidermist, you continue your education and keep growing your craft, so to say. So
do you guys have like events that you go to, or like, I guess, collaboration between, learn best practices and stuff like that from other taxidermists?
There is. I'm a member of the Michigan Taxidermist Association and also the National Taxidermist Association. Michigan has their yearly conference competition in April down in Mount Pleasant. I'll be down there to compete and also attend seminars to expand my knowledge.
So it's kind of like everybody gets together, talk shop, learn new things, or like, hey, you got this new paint that I tried. Oh, that's good. It seems like you guys, just from what I've talked to taxidermists, it seems like it's not a competitive industry because you guys are always busy. So it's basically everybody locally kind of knows each other, knows what we do, and like kind of refers each other. Like, if I'm busy, or hey, this guy's really good at doing fox mounts or something. Like, okay.
Yeah, it used to be. From what I'm told, is before my time in the industry, it was a very secretive type industry, but it's moved on past that. They said with Facebook, there's always guys showing you something that they've done, or like I said, with seminars, there's every judge at these seminars, every judge at these competitions has to put on a seminar. So they will do a seminar on whether it be different finishing techniques or maybe even casting in a whole fish to make your own mold.
Oh, wow. All right, so I guess one of the things, I got my trophy catch, went through, I paid to do it, you did a good job. How do I make sure that's going to keep looking good, whether it's, if there's any differences with replica skin mounts, or just because general tips that we can have?
One of the biggest things is keep it out of direct sunlight. Obviously, you're going to display it in your house where it's easily seen.
Yeah, but, bragging kind of.
Right. But and then if it gets dusty, you can just take a microfiber towel, kind of wipe down. Go with especially if it's a skin mount, go with the scales.
Okay.
Or the replicas are the same thing. Just wipe them down. It really depends on the clear coat that your taxidermist used. If it's like a spray paint type clear coat, you might want to be careful for any harsh chemicals. Windex is a good cleaning option. I use a 2-part automotive clear coat, so I mean you can use a lot of things with it, but You want to stay away from a paint thinner or
all the harsh stuff.
Right, rubbing alcohol. Stay away from that. Just a simple Windex. You can take a Q-tip with some Windex, clean the eyes, get in between the fin rays.
What if, this is kind of an oddball question, but let's say if I had, Replica Mount, whatever, then later on I wanted to add like a scene to it. Let's say if, down the road I'm like, hey, I wish I would have done a scene. Is it easy to do that for you?
It's possible. Like I said, it all depends on the shape of the fish is in at the time. Mm-hmm. At that point, maybe if it's looking a little beat up, we look at possibly refinishing it, repainting, which is always an option. But as far as adding it to a scene, that's it absolutely.
And there's a whole bunch of different options. Like let's say if you're ice fishing, you get like, I don't know, acrylic or something. If you want like the illusion of a hole, and then you have like a crappie underneath it. You can do stuff like that too.
There's many. Yeah, I've done like an ice fishing scene with the plexiglass with some fake snow ice slush.
Beer cans on top.
You can do that with a bobber with the line coming down with the hook on the fish's mouth.
Oh, so really you can paint whatever. You can work. It's the consultation part's big too. Like so, if that dialogue with say me as the angler, if I have something in my head, pitch the idea. If you can't do it, you can't do it. But there's a lot of I guess there's a lot of things that you can do that I didn't really think too much of.
Right. The habitat portion of a mount can get very creative, very vast with. I mean, sometimes it could cost more than the actual mount itself, but you can get as crazy as you want or as mild as you want.
Looking to get a hold of Jason? Call or text 906-280-3865 or get a hold of him on Facebook, Branlin's Taxidermy, LLC.
Whether they're pulling a sled, chasing birds, or laying on a couch, dogs hold a special place in the hearts of many. I had a chance to sit down with Ryan Wender and talk about his book and what he learned from his special dog.
Last October, the best hunting dog that I've ever had, I had to unfortunately put him down, and I just started writing down stories about raising him and what he was as a pup, what he was as a hunting dog, and what he was for me and my family. And it kind of started from there, and kind of as it progressed, I showed it to my wife and one of my pastors and thought it would be a good idea to put it out there as a book. The book starts off with just a little background about me and my love for dogs, and then as it gets into it, it gets into this particular dog. His name was Brewer. The title comes from actually how I picked him up. I had been looking around, finally found a litter in Iowa that I was interested in, and there were 19 pups. Every pup had been spoken for except for mine. When I went to pick him up, his kennels were about 50 yards from his house. He was walking out to his kennels as I arrived, and he let all the puppies out. So 19 puppies ran out of the kennel. 18 puppies streaked toward the patio to go get their food, and one pup walked out and sat down right in front of me. And I asked the owner, I said, which pup is mine? And he went through and he checked all 18 pups that were up on the patio, and in the end he yelled, "It's that one." And it was that pup that knew he was mine before I did. This dog just had incredible instincts. He knew what cover to check. I mean, there wasn't a small patch of grass that might hold a bird that he wouldn't go to and check to see if something was in there. There's a lot of times I thought he was wasting his time, but he knew a heck of a lot better than me, and he'd flush a bird and we'd have some dinner later that night. He's an incredible hunting dog, but he was an even better, family dog. When I talk about lessons learned from a dog, there's lessons that we learn as children and adults and young adults, and they're lessons that I wasn't quite smart enough to really take hold of. Like after the first evening I had Brewer at the house, he ended up crawling under our deck, and he came out with a treble hook sticking out of his nose, and I had to pop it through the other side and cut the barb off and take it out, and I was so worried about, is this what he's going to remember us, first being together? And as soon as I took it out, he jumped up in my lap, and it was over. He forgave me, and it's something I try to do better myself. The basis of the whole book is it's about hunting, family, and faith, and the right instruments can get put in front of us, even though we might not expect them to be, to help show us what's right.
Around late March to early April, sandhill cranes migrate back to their breeding grounds, and we start to see the cranes in wetlands and fields here in Upper Michigan. They'll nest near water, and they'll feed along roadsides or in fields without snow. And every year in mid-April, hundreds of volunteers participate in the annual Midwest Crane Count. Karen Berg is the local coordinator for Ontonagon County.
And it's organized through the International Crane Foundation in Baraboo, Wisconsin. This kind of activity of a crane count day was basically twofold. Find out where they are and what they're doing, and what the habitat is like, but also getting people aware of them. In particular, there are two types of cranes in this continent, sandhill cranes and whooping cranes. Well, hooping is so endangered, and probably we would never see them at this point up here. In the 40s and 50s, there were very few cranes, even sandhill cranes, living in this area, in this part of the continent. But gradually over the years, I've been coming up since 1970, and it wasn't until the 90s that I discovered cranes. Now, that doesn't mean they weren't here before, but there weren't many of them. Today, there are many who nest up here. Probably a combination of reasons. Populations has rebounded from the 1900s. It was down to a very low count number. A lot of hunting and trophy hunting for feathers. So the observations are always only 2 hours, mid-April, and then that's all reported to the foundation. So this mid-April is a good time in general to see them out. They haven't got their chicks yet, and that's good because they're out looking and they're eating and making their nests. Otherwise, you might not see them as easily for a while. So it's always this time of year. What happens is this part of the country, as you guess, is transitioning at this time of year. And sometimes we sit out in a snowstorm, and this year I think we might see some, because right now we're getting some rain, and so the fields are opening up. The habitat that's desirable are kind of wetland, marshy kinds of areas. They will eat the frogs or the little tubers of plants, or in Wisconsin it's become an issue that they like to eat the new seeds of the corn. I probably have about 43 sites listed, and each year we probably average at 25 or 30 sites where the people have observed. Try not to have any kind of observation points too close together, because you don't want to be both counting the same birds. They're loud, their voices carry, and that's what we do on the day of count. We don't have to see them. We hear them. We might see them walking. We might see them overhead, flying, and all of that counts. They do have really 3 calls. One of them is a call that's a unison call. It sounds strange to say that, but it's what the pairs call to each other. And then there's the alert or alarm. And there's one that's quite soft, much more like in the nest with the young.
Karen and I decided to meet at one of the count locations near my house for the morning of the crane count. It was a beautiful, calm, and chilly morning watching the sunrise. Unfortunately, we didn't see any cranes. Most likely due to the snow we received the day before that covered the fields back up. We did hear some turkeys, crows, and chickadees. On my ride home, though, I spotted these two along the side of the road, who are probably wondering why they migrated north so soon.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next week right here on Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.